Hi and welcome. I'm Rob Levin, Chairman and co-founder of Work Better Now. And on behalf of the Work Better Now team, I'd like to welcome everybody to our series, Working Better Now, where we do a Q&A with a successful entrepreneur. Today, we are very fortunate to have longtime contact. We'll go into that in a second, Steve. Longtime contact, Steve Bookbinder, CEO of DM Training. Steve, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this. And let me just start out. We met when I believe we met when you were at a company called DEI. So I guess that's a good transition to. Why don't you just tell us about your career and how you got to DM Training?
Okay, sure. Well, I took a very circuitous route to the point that I'm at now, which is to be the CEO of a global sales training company. Um, Before this, I was with another training company called DEI and worked with companies. We did sales training across many industry verticals and geographic verticals. I was all over the place, working with companies in every business. But before that, I was in advertising. So I always had a love of advertising and was trying to then bring sales training to advertising. And in that process, eventually started bumping into digital media businesses. This was late 90s, early 2000, fell in love with the space and realized that's where the future was and needed to jump with 2 feet into that space. Left training, went to work at a company called 24/7 Real Media, eventually bought by WPP. I'm now working for Group M. Eventually, I leave Group M. And eventually, the chair of the IAB, Dave Moore, who was also a good friend and a guy that I swam the English Channel with in 2008, he asked me in 2009 to launch this company, originally with the goal of bringing the best and the brightest into this very fast growing industry. Anybody that wants to be relevant and have a great job, it's going to be around, go into digital media. And eventually we evolved from only training media salespeople to training media salespeople about more about digital media, but teaching non-media salespeople things that they now need to know about digital selling. If you're selling and you're doing it by virtual meetings and email and social selling, you're digital selling, and the customer's living in a digital world. So that's how I got there. And just before I got into advertising, I was doing advertising during the day. I was doing stand-up comedy at night. So the thing was, how could I get the creativity that I like out of the advertising, the getting on stage that I remember from stand-up comedy, but only during the day, not on holidays, and how do I get paid the commission? And that's what led me to even discover there's such a thing called sales training. And so that's how I got into that business. So that's the whole story.
Gotcha. And again, I think we met while you were at DEI, although I remember when you went over to 24/7 working with Dave Moore. Did you work with Jonathan Sue as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
perfect. Great exit that they had. You can take all the credit. So, if you look at the work you've done in the past, particularly with smaller businesses, let's say $20 million in revenue and under, right? What's you walk into it back in the old days when you used to go into a client's office,
Literally
walk
walking.
into a client's office, you probably know within 5 minutes, what they need, what they can be improving on, what they could be doing better. What is that typically? Let's go pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, what was the opportunity, or maybe still the opportunity today, for most small businesses to improve how they sell?
Most companies do not think about pipeline management. It's just not a thing they think about. They don't think about it in the way I think about it. So, what they end up doing instead is they think about, let's hire people who already know how to sell. Maybe they even have and as smaller companies will often go that route. Either they can't afford anybody with any kind of skills at all, or they hire somebody with a so-called Rolodex. My father used to be in business, and he has I have an old-fashioned Rolodex, like the Museum of Sales in my office, an actual Rolodex. And that's what you'd have. You'd have people that knew people, and that would be the key to making sales. And what companies go through is there's a ripple effect. Watch how the ripple effect works. The first part of the ripple effect is the salesperson believes they already know how to sell and nobody's going to teach them anything because their sale is different and no other sales skill would apply because nothing on the planet is like what they do. How do they know? They really don't know. They only believe that to be the case, but if you look at their resume, they've always worked in the same business. I've just told you I was in stand-up comedy, advertising, sales training with a million different companies. I've literally done more than 5,000 workshops. I've literally trained more than 50,000 salespeople and sales managers and owners. And when somebody says to me, well, we're different, I go, well, I'm actually a better judge of that. And you know what? What I've learned is a lot of things that you think are different. Somebody in some other part of the country, in the world, in a different industry, has the same challenge and maybe came up with a different strategy. So my thing is going around the world, working, and I kind of get a backstage pass, if you will. I work with clients generally with their pipeline. So to do that, the client has to share with me what their pipelines look like, the forecasts look like, including their inaccurate forecasts, the KPIs, including the KPIs which are either dubious or are not helpful, or the missing KPIs of things that you should have, but you're not tracking for some reason. And but it starts with the salesperson not wanting to follow a manufacturing process. Here's the manufacturing process. You start with a goal of what you want the output to be. You come up with a process that produces that. You figure out the inputs that give you over time the outputs. Totally different in sales. In sales, we start off with the inputs with no idea and no connection between what all that inputting is going to be on the outside, on the output. Not only how much it's going to close, but when it's going to close. Meanwhile, the owner needs to know when it's going to close. The whole thing is, so the sales process is mysterious and it's totally opaque. So pipeline management isn't just simply organize things into a pipeline. It's don't make sales opaque. Make it open. Make it a community activity. Make it so that everybody shares the same language when we use terms that everybody uses, like qualified. What does that mean, qualified? I've literally asked 50,000 people, what does that mean? Because it's the first thing you do, right? Qualified. Okay, what is that literally, like when you find somebody's qualified, what then is true of them? And here's what you learn. Well, they could potentially have a need. They could potentially pay for it. Well, guess what? Everybody has a potential need, but potentially. I mean,
wait, Steve, you mean she took my call? That doesn't mean that she's qualified?
she's qualified to, what I learned is a big part of qualified, which I only discovered after I went into business for myself, is could potentially have a need, could potentially buy, and can make a financial budget decision in the next 60 days. That piece becomes actually more important than the other pieces. And so, but 50%, what does 50% mean? How much of sales is a forecast, and how many times do salespeople use 50%? Well, if I give you a proposal, it's either yes or no. If I call a lead, they'll either meet or they won't meet. Everything is 50%. I go, really? Because watch, your lottery ticket's either a winner or a loser. Is the lottery ticket 50%? No. If it were, every other time you bought, you would win. Well, if you apply that to sales, what you get is salespeople only prospect as much as they think they have to. They think everything that they're working on is a 50% chance of closing. They stop prospecting early on. Then, when they get pressure, they go back to those few people they started prospecting to, and nobody knows what's going on, and they pressure those people, literally dropping their pants, begging for the sale. So they finally close the wrong sale, the wrong deal, not enough, missed the goal. So pipeline management changes that. It says, how do we create a lead flow and deal flow which will produce the right number of sales all the time? And where are the sales before the sales? They're in the pipeline. So here's a question I like to ask people. Look at your pipeline. What is your pipeline supposed to look like? Here's a question I never even thought about. Well, that's what I talk about with pipeline management. How do you change your goals into a pipeline? How do you make your goals from a dream into action steps? How do you know you're on progress to get to your goals? You got to inspect. You taught me what is measured is managed. Well, let's manage the growth. And how else are you going to manage it if you don't do it that way? And let's have everybody on the team speak the same language as each other. And over time, what happens is everybody's happier and they make more money. And the owners know when the money is coming in.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Steve. And I couldn't agree anymore. In fact, I've taken tips from you over the years, back when I had the New York Enterprise Report and managed Salesforce, among others. And you can really apply a methodology to it. And if you're not, you're out of your mind. So that was pre-2020. 2020, of course, added just a few extra wrinkles to selling. So in a nutshell, what additional opportunities do companies have now that we're going through COVID? Where can companies improve in general?
Okay. And it's a bunch of things all coming together all at once. I think a bunch of things that were happening anyway accelerated because of COVID. Just like 9/11 accelerated things that were already happening.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, here's where we are. We're in a world of quantity and quality. You cannot solve sales problems with quantity anymore. However, you've got a lot of quantity tools. So you've got marketing platforms, and you've got CRMs and things of that nature. So what salespeople I see is happening is this: they're at home, they're under pressure, and it's hard. Many people don't have a home really designed to be a work environment too. So they're trying to work with the washing machine behind them and the kids running around and all the other distractions. It's hard. They don't know how to organize themselves, their time, in that environment. And I'll give you an example of something. In an office from 9 to 5, you take a couple of breaks. If you took more than a couple of breaks, people would talk. How come this guy's always on a break? When you're at home, you're at work pretty much by the time you open your eyes. You open your eyes, you're already at work. You glance at the computer and your email just before you go to sleep. So your work day maybe is 18 hours. So given that, you got to take breaks. You got to take real breaks. You got to organize yourself. You have to say to yourself, if I don't organize my day right, I will get tired, I will get frustrated, I will get bored. So you need to create you got to be your own coach and your own cheerleader. You got to create benchmarks that you can get a streak going, that you can keep yourself motivated. You need to have other kinds of KPIs that you could measure progress. So it's not about the quantity of how many emails you sent or even the number of hours you were working in a row. It's the quality of, did you get one person to meet with you better than did you send out 50,000 emails? And I mention this because when people get frustrated, they go, quantity. I just always want to feel like more is more likely. Throw a lot of stuff against the wall. I know it sounds stupid, but I can't help but throw a lot of stuff against the wall, and I'm not comfortable unless there's a lot of stuff on the wall. And so I think people are just driven by the wrong behavior. They end up getting frustrated. They don't set up their time right. And then watch on the quantity thing. We have now gotten to the point that you could very easily send a lot of emails. If the goal is to send a lot of emails, well, you could automate. Here's what people can't do easily, and they need to do. They need to take their big mailing list and break it in, and think like a marketer. Break it into a bunch of smaller lists by personas now you got to think like a real marketer. You got to think about a cadence strategy, A, B, and ABC tests of templates. You need to be tracking what is the frequency cap on the number of times you need to send somebody an email before it becomes ineffective. You also need, most salespeople, they kind of get it, but they don't. Here's what they do. This is what 99% of them do. They write an email like Shakespeare. They go, what would get this person who I'm sending this email to be so excited they're going to buy from me? And so they load up the email with every sales benefit you could possibly come. Then they're out. They've exhausted themselves. Second email, they have nothing else to say. So they say, did you see my first email? Third email, now they're frustrated. Hey, a simple reply would have been nice, Now they're shaming you into it. Why did you think you were only going to send one email in the first place? So this notion of a communication cadence, personalized email, the problem with that? It's hard work. It's a lot easier? Just send out more emails. So that's what I see. I see the biggest problem in today's world is not an over-reliance on technology. It's not knowing how to properly use the technology. The purpose of these marketing platforms that everybody believes in is not just to send out a lot of stuff. It's to improve your conversion rate. Improve my conversion rate? Yeah. You don't get paid if you send out a lot of stuff. You only get paid if there's a conversion. And so once you start, thinking outcome first, and then building every part of your process to how do I achieve that outcome. Look, for example, no salesperson missed the news they should prepare for a meeting. Nobody missed that news. But when I ask people, what is the purpose of preparing? How do you measure successful preparation? This is where they go, and you can always tell salespeople when they're making it up as they go along, because they do it the way cartoon characters run, which is like this. First, the cartoon character is not running. Then it starts to run, but it doesn't go anywhere. Then a lot of smoke occurs around the legs, and then with a funny sound effect, it's gone. And the same thing with, but you know what? How do you measure the product? I don't know. Here's how you measure. Did you get a scheduled next step at the end of your meeting? If you really prepared right, then you know what would have happened. You would have had a scheduled next step. If you're not actually tracking that, then you can't track if you're preparing the right things in the first place. So, I guess, to answer your question, you know what I say? The devil in the detail. There's marketing, but there's not personal marketing involving social selling, email correctly. There's doing marketing things, but there's not thinking like a marketer. There's preparing for a sale, but not preparing for it the way like the military would prepare, with targets and benchmarks and training and steps, and even questions. Like nobody missed the news. You should ask questions. 2 ears, 1 mouth, questions. And yet people think of first level questions. I do a whole program on second level questions. What questions should you ask that you didn't ask? I'll give you an example of this one. This comes up in practically every sale, because so many sales now involve multiple influencers and other people. Even if the customer said, I'm the decision maker, by the time you get to the proposal, all of a sudden there's another person. At some point, the customer says to the salesperson, I've got to talk to the team or my boss or the committee or somebody else. Typical salesperson says, can I come with you? That's the question. Here's a better question. When you talk to the team, when you talk to the boss, when you talk to the committee, will you be recommending us? Would there be a better question? Because now the answer would be, I am. Oh, great. Because then I don't need to be there. Versus, well, I don't want to influence the others unfair. I'm not going to really recommend, but so I got to hear that, or I don't know what's going to happen. So what's going to happen in the rooms when I'm not in the room? I just wrote this book, Echo Selling. It's all about that. It's about how do you get your sales pitch to echo into places that you can't get into. So that's what I really see. It's not like there's new skills other than the devil in the detail, although echo selling is a new skill, because buyers have absolutely measurably changed.
Yeah.
They meet with the salesperson later in the process. They hardly meet with them at all. We've got to create a way to get our sales pitch to echo among people who are in meetings every week when we're not in the room with them.
Yeah, and I have a thought about that. It's about changing the salesperson can help change the point of view of the person they're talking to. They're on the way of doing that. But that's a discussion for another time. Let's talk a little bit more about DM training. So I think you have a pretty lean team. I also know you rely on technology a lot. Tell us about the team and how you're able to, serve all of the clients that you do.
I have a lean team. I've also got a very big team. Watch how I make my team very big. A few years ago, I had a team that was a small team relative to companies. I had maybe 15 people. And of those 15 people, approximately 10 of them were salespeople. And everybody else had some other job. One of the things I've learned is to work instead through partnerships. So one of the partnerships that I work with are trade organizations, a lot of media trade organizations and non-media trade organizations. When I work with a trade organization, I'm helping the trade organization contact, who represents the trade organization, helping that organization make more money and provide more value. When they see my relationship, their relationship with me is helping them make more value to the members, they realize it'll help them hold on to their members, get more membership fees, get more money, actually make money with our training. So what happens? They sell their members for me. I have 3 different organizations I'm working with currently right now. One in London, one in Italy, and one in the United States, giant organizations that are marketing to their people. And the salesperson, I'm not paying them a salary. They're also a small business owner. They're the head of this association. And so I have tried to find ways to work through partnerships. And that's how I've expanded my team. I find people who want to work as hard because they own their own company rather than a payroll employee. So I have a minimal payroll employees, maximum partnerships, and that part works great.
Gotcha. How long did it take you to figure that out?
Uh, ah, well, we had a really bad year in 2016, and it was then the company started falling apart. And I realized that I really don't have any other job I could do other than this. I have to find a way to reinvent this same company. But so what do I really need? I really need people who can help me produce videos and make online training and make the webinars more interesting. And, so I need more production things, or I needed people. My feeling is find people that already have a relationship with the people you want to know. So, I mean, I guess I could prospect everybody, but somebody's already got that relationship. Why can't I work through them?
Gotcha. Gotcha. So tell us a little bit about the technology that you use, whether it's to run the company and or to deliver your training.
A couple of different technologies. So one, from the client perspective, looking at us, the biggest technology that they see us is a learning management system, which is our online platform. One of the things we've learned about we tried to make our own. We spent millions of dollars doing that. We eventually licensed a very great LMS, and it's so that and LMSs will generally, like the human brain, have way more capabilities than anybody is using them for. So you could grow within that. I have all these interesting business models. I have other trainers that have a need for online training, would like to have online training, but don't have any assets. So I actually rent space on my LMS for other trainers. Two women trainers that I'm working with just won some award for their online training, which in fact is hosted by my platform. So I feel like a part of their award. So, but that's a main one. But here's what I've learned, and it's a lesson that you see throughout digital media. Every obstacle will block users. So here's an obstacle. You have content on one page of a website. You want users to go from this page to this other page of the same website. Generally speaking, you'll lose half of the audience. That's going from one page to another page of the same website. You lose the audience. If you're on LinkedIn and you want people to go from LinkedIn to a website, well, you're going to lose them because some people just want to stay in LinkedIn or just in Facebook. They don't want to leave that environment. So every time you leave the environment, it's a problem. One of the ways we've solved the problem is we look at the training business from the salesperson's point of view. There's a million little pieces of paper and post-it notes and all kinds of files hidden all over. Where is that training that I'm supposed to find? So we've created a landing page where all the training can always be found. So there's one landing page as we just keep updating it. So let's say I'm working with your company all year long, and every week or two we add another training thing. The people could just click to the next asset. They go one page. They don't have to go into my app and use a login and get there. So I've just simplified the technology with and we also will make good use of Google Docs when we have to share stuff. We'll use that, make it easier. Internally, we use Dropbox a lot. We use HubSpot as well for our work.
Gotcha. And Steve, you hired one of our, well, actually, you had two of our VAs this year. Tell us a little bit about your experience in how WBN VAs have helped you, what they've done for you, and what that's been like.
Okay. First of all, it ended up what I'm using your virtual assistants for now is very different than what I originally envisioned. You had told me that would happen, and yet I could not have visualized it. So initially, I had my right arm person went on a maternity leave, could not function without somebody taking up some of that slack. And so, thank God, Work Better Now is there to get me a virtual assistant. But what I learned was, first of all, we're in a pandemic. Nobody could be in the same room with anybody anyway. But what's interesting is if you're working on a creative project, which for me means a document, an infographic, a PowerPoint, physically, how can you work with a second person unless you're both in a remote location looking at a shared screen? In other words, like if you were literally in the same room with me, unless we position the monitor, you'd have to like sit on my lap for us to look at it together. So we're chances are going to be in a separate room looking at a shared document. Since that's the case anyway, what difference does it make where the person is? So what I end up doing is working with a person in El Salvador who is able to look at the same document. We sit there together and looking at something and go, "What about this? Can you make that?" Well, what I did not anticipate was every time the need was, can we operate this other software? Is there another app that does the thing we need? That the VA could A, find that there is in fact another app, and B, find out how to work it, read the instructions, watch the YouTube video, or call somebody else that's another virtual assistant. And between all those things, we were able to solve a whole bunch of technical problems. We've even solved it this way. I would have a technical problem on my end, could not solve it. The whole show was stopping because I could not figure something out. Put the virtual assistant on the screen with me. How do I change the thing and make this thing work? And she looks at it, she goes, "Well, you just do this, that, and the other thing," and it's done. Solved. I had no place to go, needed help in this moment. I don't have an AV department, IT department down the hall. And there's that person. Well, I thought the original need was for calendar management because we have a lot of calendar management issues, a lot of production and schedules and overlapping schedules. What I now have VAs doing is producing videos, helping me with marketing, helping me proofread my notes. In fact, one of the things, and this may sound stupid, but I like working with other people. I just like being in a group. I swim in a relay. So there are certain tasks that we do that we just do together. And there are certain tasks we do that the virtual assistant is doing something while I'm doing the other part of the same project. What's great is I will like shoot a video against a green screen. They will take that and produce a whole video with openings and closes and backgrounds and editing and all kinds of stuff. So what happened? I just did the part that I'm good at. She did a bunch of things that she wasn't even necessarily good at 6 months ago, but she's great at now.
Very cool. That's awesome to hear. So Steve, when you're not working and you're not making videos and you're not helping companies and all that, yeah, whenever that is,
Exactly.
hopefully you have more time now that you have one of our VAs helping you. What do you do in your free time? What do you like to do in your free time?
I read. Well, I mean, I walk when I can. I'd be swimming more if my pool was open, but I read a lot. And, we're in a world where we have to mostly, especially salespeople, have to write stuff. And what makes you a better writer? Reading. And it's impossible to read anything without learning something. And it's also impossible to read without getting better as a writer. So I enjoy novels, and I alternate between a business book and a novel. And people said, "You read sales books?" I do, but my sales book is on psychology, or it's on game theory, or it's on a wide range of books, which I now think of as sales books. Right. So reading, big thing.
Gotcha. And Steve, finally, where can people find out more about you and DM training?
Well, you could find me on LinkedIn. You could also go to www.dmtraining.net. And you'll see our courses. We have a lot of free stuff, including playbooks and newsletters and podcasts. We also have announcements about webinar series and things of that nature. And every so often we run specials, coaching specials. We're running a kickoff special right now, so you'll find all that on our website.
Fantastic. Steve, it's always a pleasure. Thanks a lot for taking part of the Working Better Now series. Well, and I'll be speaking with you soon.
Great. Thank you so much for involving me. Take care, everybody.